The keys I'm using are in the bottom right corner of the viewport. Look for a reference online and save it. Import the image as an empty. This will allow you to be in wireframe mode but still see your reference. Rotate the reference and place it so the bottom of the can is on the ground in Blender. Add a cylinder and move it up along the Z-axis until it sits on the ground. Set the origin to the 3D cursor. Open the Properties panel, and under the Item tab, change the dimensions to match real-world scales. Generally, a metal garbage can will be about 27 inches high, or 68.5 centimeters, and 20.5 inches wide, or 52 centimeters. Then apply the scale. In Edit mode, delete the bottom face, select the edges, and use the F key to add faces. When you get to the last portion of the bottom on each side, select the outer edge and subdivide it. This will allow you to use 2 triangles to complete the actual face. Use loop cuts to demark the different areas of the can according to your reference image. Add a bevel to each of the loop cuts. Then using Alt-E, scale the new faces in along their normals. Select the bottom row of faces and scale them in along the X and Y axis to taper the garbage can. To form the interior of the can, select the top face and inset it. Then extrude the inset face down along the Z-axis. For the lid, select the top ring of faces and duplicate them. Then scale these duplicated faces along the X and Y axis. In Edge mode, add faces to the center of the lid, just like you did for the bottom of the can. Extrude the faces up along the Z-axis and scale them in along the X and Y axis. Select the top inner faces and move them up along the Z-axis and scale them in along the X and Y axis. Do this a couple times just to give the lid a slight bulge at the top. Select the bottom interfaces of the lid and inset them slightly. Then move them up along the Z-axis to make a concave look. Add a cylinder with a triangle cap fill and a lower amount of vertices. This will be the start of our side handles. Scale it down to the proper size and rotate it around the x-axis 90 degrees. Inset the end faces and then delete the inset faces. Delete one half of the cylinder. Select two faces of the can, and on the side where the handle will attach, use the knife tool to add horizontal edges where the handle will fit. Make them bigger than the height of the handle. Then extrude the faces out along their normals. Attach the cylinder to these faces. You may need to extrude the edges of the cylinder. In object mode, add a Bezier circle and rotate it around the y-axis 90 degrees. In edit mode, scale the two side vertices in along the y-axis. Then move the two side vertices and the bottom vertex up along the z-axis. And scale the bottom vertex along the y-axis. Select the entire circle and scale it to the proper size for a handle. Move the handle into place. In the Object Data Properties tab, under the Geometry panel, add a bevel to the curve. In Object Mode, convert the curve to a mesh and join it to the rest of the can. Make sure your 3D cursor is still in the center of the world space. In edit mode, delete the half of the can that doesn't contain the handle. Select the remaining part of the can and add a mirror modifier. Making sure to have clipping turned on so there isn't a tear in the center of the can. In object mode, apply the mirror modifier. Duplicate one of the side handles. Rotate the duplicate until it is in line with the lid. Using the P key, separate the can, lid, and handles from one another. In object mode, apply all the transforms. If you're new to UV unwrapping, I made a beginner tutorial that you should watch first. The link is in the description and the card above. Open the UV editor and make a new UV for the garbage can. Select all three parts of the garbage can and tab into edit mode. For now, hide the handles and the lid. Select the bottom outer edges, the top outer edges, and a vertical edge up along the back and inside of the can. Mark them as seams and unwrap the can. Once unwrapped, move the islands to the side. For the half cylinder of the handles, select the outer round edges and the top back edge and mark the seam. For the Bezier curve, select the center vertical edge and mark the seam. For the curved sides of the lid handle, select each corner edge and mark the seam. And select all the handle pieces and unwrap them. For the lid, select the bottom outer ring of edges and a vertical edge along the back of the lid. Mark them as seams and unwrap the lid. Select everything, and under the Overlays menu, turn on Display Stretch to check for any stretching and make any necessary adjustments as possible. Select all the islands, and under the UV menu, choose Pack Islands and give them some margin. You may also want to scale and move the islands so they're not touching the sides of the UV. Then export the UV layout. In the shader editor, add a new material and change the base color to a light gray. Add a noise texture and a Voronoi texture node. Combine these two nodes with a Mix RGB node and connect it to the roughness of the principled shader. Change the metallic to 1 add a color ramp between the Mix RGB and the principled shader, and use the color ramp to determine how shiny the material will be. Select the lid and handles and give them the same material. Now join the side handles and the can. Make sure the can is sitting on the ground in the world center. Set the origin to the 3D cursor. For the lid, shift right-click so the 3D cursor is on the bottom center of the lid. And set the origin to the 3D cursor.